Hello, welcome back to Suburban Hunt 365. I am DJ and we are in the reloading room again today. Now today's video is going to be slightly different than what you're used to seeing here on the channel because the gun that we're going to be messing with today is not particularly a hunting gun. Today Dave has got himself a new Garison, if I'm pronouncing that right, 1911. It's an MC 1911S. Garison MC 1911S. This has already got a compensator on there. I'm not sure if it came with that or if the guy that he got it from had put that on himself. It does have the regular 1911 on the end here, but having the compensator is actually going to make it easier for us to completely disassemble this because of the compensator we won't need the 1911 tool. But anyway, so we're going to go ahead, we're going to fully break this thing down. He's shot it a few times already. We know it's a good gun, and honestly, it's, hey DJ, will you clean my gun while showing everybody how to break it down? So, absolutely. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and let's break this guy down. Before we get over to the bench, I do want to show you, no magazine. It is, in fact, clear. There's nothing in there. It is an empty gun. Alright, let's get to the bench and start breaking this thing down. Alright, now that we're on the bench, the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and field dress this guy. As I showed you before, it is clear. There are no rounds in here. There is no magazine. You can see all the way through it. So the first thing we're going to do, you see this notch where the slide lock is actually on there. You'll see there's a small notch just behind it right there. You want to line this slide lock with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep pressure on both. Press in just a little bit and line it up to where that is just right there. You can see how that's set up right there. Now I'm going to rotate my hand, grab this, and on the back side you've got a pin right there that you're going to push on. As you see from this side, it pushes it out. So to show you that again, we're going to push this out, and then this slides out like such from there. Alright, go ahead and take this all the way out. Grab the slide, take the pressure off, and then it slides completely apart. Alright, now that we've got this thing broke down, we want to go ahead and we actually want to break down completely the slide. So we're going to move our frame over to the side for a second. In order to start this off, we're going to have to take the barrel out, the compensator off, the spring guide, and the spring itself apart. And that has to be done in a certain way. Now, if you took this apart and your spring guide decided to shoot up on you, like a lot of times it does, a lot of times you'll have it looking like this. You can't take this apart like this. You actually have to put that spring guide back down up against the barrel in order to get this down. So again, we need it down like this as if you're going to put it back on the frame. So we want to keep tension on that by holding it like such. Now, in order to take this apart, what we're going to have to do is you can look down in there. You see the spring guide, top of the spring guide. Well, just around the top of the spring guide there, you see that small little ledge of metal. That is your barrel bushing. Okay, so we're gonna have to push the barrel bushing down along with the spring itself, and then rotate this compensator counterclockwise. So what I'm gonna be using is a 730 seconds punch to push on the edge of that bushing and then rotate this compensator clockwise. So pressing down on the edge of it, you press down and you go clockwise. It'll push it out just like that. Now we're going to get to a slightly smaller punch. This is a 1/16 punch because what we got to do, you can actually see that bushing real good now. So we've got to take this bushing here and push it down. But what it is, there's a channel about 1/8 of an inch inside the barrel here where your compensator actually locks down onto. Same thing with your barrel bushing, right? So what we're going to do is we're actually going to push this bushing down past that groove to where this will slide counterclockwise all the way out of the way. Now the thing is when you do this, there's obviously a spring that is under a lot of tension. We don't want them to go flying across the room. So I'm going to try to show you this the best I can without sending my springs across the room. So I'm going to have my thumb ready to cover. So you're going to push down to where it clears. Now I'm going to ride my thumb over the top of this. Push down, rotate clockwise, and again I'm putting pressure here because as soon as that clears, it's going to want to pop. You can see right there, it's already pushing. There's a lot of pressure on underneath me right now. So now I've got all the pressure on my thumb. Take the compensator out. There's that little guide I was telling you about right there that goes inside there. So now we're going to let the pressure off. There we go. So there's your barrel bushing there, your spring, and now you can flip this over. Your guide rod will just come right out. And in order to take your barrel out, lay that flat and slide it out the front like so. Alright, now that is the slide field dress. Now we can completely clean it, clean your springs, clean your barrel out and everything. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to keep going. So what's left on this, there are a couple different ways, or a couple different designs that you'll see out there for the 1911s. This one is very reminiscent of Glock. If you guys have ever taken the back of a Glock slide out, this is very reminiscent of that. What you can see here, that is actually your firing pin. I'll grab this so I can point better. This is your firing pin here. Alright, and you can see there's a groove here. This groove is where this sits. So what we want to do, just like in a Glock, is we're going to push down on the firing pin and then push forward. I'm trying to get this so I can show you on the camera at the same time. So I'm going to push forward. So now you can see there's a hole there. The spring is actually underneath this plate, and we're going to push this back, and then we're going to catch that spring. Same thing as if a Glock, just like your Glocks. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to push this forward. And again, we're keeping our thumb over it because you'll see it once it clears. Take this out. You hear that click. That's actually the firing pin. Go ahead and put that catch down. And then release our firing pin like so. So the firing pin comes out with the spring. Separate those. We'll clean those here in a minute. Now the only thing left is your ejector. Now with this, a lot of the guns on the slides, they'll have a spring somehow in here that you got to take apart. This one you do not. This one you can take your 1/16 punch, and you'll see inside that groove right there. See how this shelf sits right in here? This actually goes up underneath it. You can actually get up underneath there and just push this up, grab it, and pull all the way out, and that is your ejector right there. And that is your slide completely disassembled. Now we're going to go ahead, we're going to clean this up, and we're going to put it back together. Alright, now that we got this clean, we can go ahead and we can start putting this back together. But before we do, I really want to explain what we're going to be dealing with once we get the spring in there, because a lot of this we're going to have to do under tension. So it's a lot easier to show you this without it being under tension. First thing obviously is to go ahead and put the barrel in. So again, we want this down. Barrel goes in, up against there. Go ahead and lift that back up. Now normally we would have the spring guide in there and then the spring on top of that. But what I want you to see is that there is a groove on the inside of the barrel right there. I'm going to take this barrel out of your way so you can see it completely. There's a groove right there on the edge of that barrel. You can see it right there. That groove is what this little slot is going to go onto in the compensator. So what we're looking to do is put this in. That has to be in line with the barrel. You see how that goes down in there like this, and then it's going to twist. Alright, now we've got to do that with that spring under tension, right? So this comes in, and now we lift up here. Okay, so this has got to go inside barrel and then twist and snap in place. But again, we got to do all of that while it's under tension. So we're going to go ahead and put the barrel in like I showed you before. It's flat, goes in like such. Make sure it's all the way seated. Go ahead and lift that back up. Put your spring guide in. We get through here, making sure that this actually is on the barrel like it's supposed to be, like this. Go ahead and keep your thumb on top of that to keep pressure. We're going to put the spring over the spring guide like such. Put that down. Get our spring plug. Put it on top of the spring. And this is where it gets fun. Keep your hand down here to hold pressure in, and then we're going to push this plug down, and we're going to cap it with our thumb on this side. So spring goes down, and then cap it with your thumb on this side. So again, we have the barrel here that we're fixing to put the compensator over, so we have to push everything down to where this piece gets into that slot. So over the barrel, make it missing your thumb, line that up to where it goes down inside the barrel. Now once you get down inside there, I want to show you this. Once you actually get that down inside there to where it's actually pushing on that, it's actually going to help push that plug back down for you. So at this point, as long as that's in there, you can push down and twist, and it's going to snap into place. Alright, so there's a lot of pressure on that spring. So spring goes down, you hold it with your thumb, compensator on top of the barrel, twist it to where that notch goes down inside your slide here, and then you twist clockwise, and then it'll lock it in place. And once you have it locked in place, even if this spring does come up, it'll do what it did earlier, but you're ready to go. So we got the front back together. Now let's go ahead and let's put our firing pin back in there. So first things first, put your spring inside here. We're going to drop our firing pin down inside the spring like such. Now we also, before we put our firing pin stop on there, we got to put our ejector back in. So the ejector, you can see how it's machined. It's flat on this side, right? So we want it to match. So we're going to put that down in there, and we're going to make sure that that matches flush. So when you look down there, it is nice and flush. We need to rotate that just a little bit. It's easier to do when you're looking at it instead of the camera. But you want to make sure that that's flush. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our 1/16 punch. We're going to push our firing pin down, and just like with the Glock, we're going to grab our stop, and you can see the grooves right there. Take this guy, set it in the groove, and then push back. You can push it back to where it catches the actual pin. Get your punch out of the way as you're pushing back until the pin falls into place, and that will actually hold your pin and your extractor in at the same time, and now you have a fully assembled slide. So now we're going to set this to the side, and we're going to go ahead and start breaking down our frame. Okay, now that we've got our frame together, we're going to go ahead. First thing we're going to do is we're going to get these pistol grips out of the way. So basic flathead screwdriver. Now if you need to, you can take your finger and push in and push up like that, and that'll get you out my grips and my screws to the side. Alright, now that we got those off, the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is take out our main spring housing pin down here in the bottom, and go ahead and put this up here, and then using our 1/16, you'll see that there is a dimple on this side and it is flat on this side. So what we want to do is, where the dimple is, we want to push that through. That'll come out of the bottom like so. Put that to the side. Now this is your main spring housing. We're just going to go ahead and we're going to push that out of the bottom like so. Go ahead and set that to the side. I usually take my pin and put it back in there so you can't mistake which one goes to which. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to remove our grip safety. And in order to do that, we've got to lift up our manual safety. So we're going to lift our manual safety up and out of the way. And then on the other side, because this is only a right-handed safety, there's not ambidextrous safety, there's a pin here on this side rather than another flipper. So basically with this, all we're going to have to do is put a little bit of tension on there with your finger, and then wiggle this safety back and forth. And you'll start to see it's starting to come across here. So we just wiggle that back and forth until it comes out. So once you got that out, now be careful because you got this retention pin here for your manual safety, And for your slide lock on the other side, that's all one piece. So when you pull that out, that spring is going to kick back a little bit, but you'll be alright. So go ahead and with a little bit of pressure on your grip safety, go ahead and remove your manual safety, and you'll actually feel that release into your hand. So very carefully you can let go of this. And I just wanted to show you this. So right now we can remove our grip safety. Just pops out like that, and we can just set that to the side. Alright, now that we got that out of the way, now we're going to go ahead and take out our sear spring, which is this big black metal piece here. So just come up underneath it with your finger, kind of push up on there, see if it'll come loose. If it won't, you may have to get you a tool and you come up from underneath it here and just kind of push on it from underneath. Be careful not to bend it too much because it is just a piece of metal. And then it'll pop out. As you saw, it just lets loose like that. Alright, so that is your sear spring there. So let's go ahead and set that to the side now. Alright, now we can go ahead and remove our actual hammer. This you should not need a punch for. It should just be a matter of, this is a flat head here. You see this is bigger. This pin size is smaller. Both of these pins will be going that way. Alright, so let's go ahead and take the hammer out first. Just push on that. You can see where there's no hammer needed. So just hold on to that, slide that out, set that down, and then your hammer just slides out like so. Set that to the side, and now we're going to be taking our sear and disconnector out. Again, just using a punch, push from the right hand side of the gun to the left. Put your thumb up here to kind of catch everything. Just pull that pin out, set it down, and then this stuff will just slide right out into your hand. Now, just so you know, if you didn't catch that when this was inside the actual pistol. Let me zoom in here for you. When this is inside here, this is how that sets. Okay, so your disconnect piece is up here, your actual sears right here. This goes over, so this goes in between this like here, and this sits just like that. Alright, so we'll keep that for reference after we get this thing cleaned out. So let's go ahead and zoom back out here. We'll go ahead and put that to the side, and please also notice that your hammer pin and your sear pin is the smaller diameter pin. Alright, last but most certainly not least, we're going to go ahead and take out your magazine release, which your magazine release is actually holding your trigger in. So for this one, we're actually going to need a small jeweler's screwdriver. What you're going to want to do is give a little bit of pressure on this back side here, push up. If you push in with this, you'll see it raise like so. So what's actually happening is that's being pushed out. Alright, so just give a little bit of a push to it, and then you want to spin your screw counterclockwise. Alright, so counterclockwise, you're going to kind of see that pop out there, and then this whole thing will slide out like so. Now before I finish taking the trigger out, I want you to see this spring here. If you have to completely disconnect this, you can see how it goes on that groove right there. This spins like this. Alright, so if you want that spring all the way out of there, first put your finger in the way so it doesn't go flying across the room, and that spring comes out like so, and that is your mag release there. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to push this back in, and we're going to twist that back into that channel, so that way that stays as one piece. Alright, now that that's out of your frame, now it's simply pushing your trigger back. You can see where the back of the trigger is back here, and that whole piece comes out there. Now the only things left on your frame are these two pieces here. Those are actually machine pressed in there, so there's no need for you to do that. If you have to fix that, you need to send it back to the manufacturer to actually let them fix that. So that is the complete disassembly of your frame. Let's go ahead and let's get started putting it back together. Alright, so now we are ready to put this back together. The first thing we're going to do is, almost in the exact reverse order, is we're going to put our trigger back in as well as our magazine stop. Now if you're looking at your trigger, you can see that the bar here is on top. This is going to be closer to the slide itself. So when you grab your frame, you see this groove right here. This groove right there. That's what it's going to be sliding into. So this guy slides right into that and then gets pushed in like so. Alright, there again, it only goes in one way, so if you end up putting that upside down, you'll notice that your trigger does not go all the way forward like it's supposed to. So as you can see, it's kind of keyed. You have the round end on this side and you have your oblong over here. So taking your mag release, you can see the round goes in first. Now if this does not go all the way in, this little piece right here that's in that groove is not all the way seated. So if this doesn't want to slide in all the way, go ahead and rotate that counterclockwise to the bottom of this little groove right here, and then you'll be able to take this and slide that in with no problem, as long as your trigger is all the way forward. So there again, now we're going to put a little bit of pressure on this, and now what we're looking to do is we're going to spin this clockwise until it hits that groove, and you'll know it because it'll actually put pressure back on your mag release to where now it's engaged that spring to where you can actually push it like you're supposed to. Now that we have our mag release and our trigger installed, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to put in our disconnect and our sear, which comes in just like that, like I mentioned earlier. Now just to show you, that is going to be fitting inside this groove here. Alright, you can see the hole on top here. This is going to be the underneath of it here. And again, like I showed you before, this is how it's going to set inside there. Alright, so this is how it's going to set on the inside. So we're going to take this and we're going to put it inside that hole right there. So get that in there. You can see that this disconnect is sitting on the back of our trigger. Alright, that's where it's supposed to sit. So that way you can line your holes up. So sitting just like this, we're going to grab our trigger pin, or I'm sorry, our sear pin. I'm going to set it in the smaller one. Remember, it's the lower one. And we're going to start finagling our disconnect and our sear to get that to slide in. And you see that slides in. So you have your sear, your disconnect, that pin slides in all the way to the other side. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to install our hammer and our strut, which is here. Again, that's the bigger pin here. So we're going to go ahead and line that hole up like so. Grabbing the bigger pin, go ahead and put it in there, and then again you'll have to finagle it a little bit to get it to drop. Once you got it dropped, you know it's in there. Again, it's flush on the other side. So now we have our disconnect and our sear, and we have the hammer and our strut installed. Alright, now that we have our hammer and our strut in there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to install our sear spring. Excuse me, almost dropped it there. So this is our sear spring here. So you have a little groove on the bottom that this lip goes into. You can see how it's kind of curved right there. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to set that inside there like such. Alright, so we got that sitting in there now. Now I had to move the strut out of the way because we don't want the strut underneath it, but this is going to set on top of everything. We do not want it to be under any of that. So we're going to press down, and it's going to be pressing down on all of that there. And then you can go ahead and set your strut in the middle there like so. That out of the way, now we can go ahead and take our main spring housing here. There's grooves on the bottom on both sides. I'm going to make sure to go ahead and put those in. Slide those in just about the point where they hit that spring and kind of compress that spring down a little bit. I don't know if you can really tell from the angle, but as I was pushing in, Let's try it from this one. As you're pushing in, it's putting more and more pressure on there. So what our goal is we want to take this strut and put it inside of the hole that's in our mainspring housing. But before we can do any of that, we need to install our grip safety. So as you can tell, our hammer is back. So we're going to go ahead and we're actually going to pull the trigger, get the sear out of the way, let that hammer go back. We also need to do that because that's going to allow the strut to take pressure off of our mainspring housing. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our grip safety inside here, grab our manual safety, and we're going to put that inside. We're just going to have it go to enough to where it is holding this in place. That's all we're looking to do for this. Go ahead and get that in place like so. So what we're looking at doing is we're going to start pushing. You can see the springs kind of pushing down on this. We're going to go ahead and we're going to push this down past there, and then you can see a little bit left of the strut right here. Right, this is your strut piece. That strut piece needs to fit down inside that hole. So we're going to kind of let gravity do its thing. Take you off camera here for just a second and make sure that gets in line like that. So now you can see that strut piece is right here underneath, right there inside the housing. Now this lip right here on our grip safety, let me angle that a little more. This lip right here has got to go underneath this housing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and press down on that and in on our housing. Got a lot of tension on that. Let me make sure that this hammer's all the way forward. Alright, so that's what I did. Make sure the hammer's as far forward as we can get it to go. Press down on that. Press in on your housing. It's just still not quite lining up. Oh, my strut fell out. So back that off. Get it to where my strut is in there. And you'll know if your strut falls out because it's going to be pushing awful hard on you. There we go. So get that down. Press that back in. And you can see on the bottom here where that pinhole lines up. So press that in. Kind of hold that in place if you can. We're going to grab our pin. Remember, dimple in goes to the same side as your manual safety. So we're going to push in and down with our pin. Hold that still. Alright, so it took a little bit of pressure, like I said, downward pressure on your grip safety here, and then upward pressure on your main housing to line that pin up, and now it's got the tension on the hammer itself. Alright, now that we got this pin inside here, our main spring housing is in, our grip safety is where it's supposed to be. If it hasn't already, go ahead and throw your hammer all the way back. Make sure that it is in the rear position. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put our manual safety in. Before we can do that, we've got to go ahead and put our detents in. The small detent goes to the front towards the barrel. The long detent goes in towards the manual safety. So be careful when you're doing this not to scratch your frame. So make sure you got plenty of room here. And go ahead and line up your manual safety to where it's going to fall in. Go in. If you have to, kind of finagle your... There it goes. You saw that I had to finagle my grip safety a little bit to get that to fall. Now it's not going to fall all the way down because of the fact that your detent pin is too far out in your back. So basically what we're going to do here is take a flathead screwdriver. See if I can rotate this way and get it done. Oh, I got to press. So press in and down. If I can get this out of the way. Like so. There we go. So bring your screwdriver in from the top, press in the detent to get that to go all the way in. Now our detent works like it's supposed to. Alright, now we are ready to go ahead and put our grips on. So that is a simple flathead screwdriver. Alright, from here we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab our slide and we're going to put it on our frame. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, in order to get this on, we're going to have to push our spring guide in up against the barrel. We want to make sure that this guy is up forward like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to get it on the slide like so, push in, and what we're looking for, if I can get this to show up on the camera, is right there. You can see where that piece floats in between there. Go ahead and take your slide lock and put it in there just so. Might have to finagle a little bit, just like that. Finagle it. Alright, now when you're doing this part, to prevent yourself from getting your dummy scratches on the bottom, go ahead and set this right below this, right here on it. Okay? So now what we're going to do, right here on it. And then take your slide and pull it back to where, like before, that piece lines up with that hole, and then push straight in with your finger. Push straight in like that, and that's going to put it inside that hole. So it's kind of an in downward angle. So then that leaves your slide there. Pull your trigger, make sure that goes home. And now that we've got that, we've got this thing completely reassembled. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a functions check. Slide, trigger, falls. We're going to hold our trigger back. Let's go ahead and rack it. Trigger resets, falls, works great. Let's go ahead and take an empty magazine. Slide locks like it's supposed to. Slide release works like it's supposed to. Gun works beautifully. Alright guys, that is the Garison MC 1911S. This is a pretty smooth gun, pretty nice gun. Definitely been a big fan of 1911s. As far as budget ones go, this is pretty nice. Pretty nice 1911. I know Dave's going to be glad to get this bag all nice and clean, shiny, and ready to go. So, if you guys haven't already, please do me a big favor, do the channel a big favor, hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button on this video to let the algorithm know you guys appreciate this kind of content. Let me know in the comments what you think about this video. It's a little bit long, but I broke it down to the chapters so that way you guys can find out what you need throughout the video. So, and if this video just happened to help you out, there is a super thanks down below this video. You can show your appreciation that way if you want to. Not necessary, because we're going to keep doing what we do. From Suburban Hunt 365, I'm DJ. Catch you on the next one.